Not entirely clear what reset everything means in this case. They're currently still
I
holding
think it means
at T-minus
Control
40.
Alt Delete and then reboot.
All right, so we're going to see the clock. It is now rolling.
Here we go.
We ascend.
And Zach, to your point, they noted there was an issue with the quick disconnect, and note that there may be another issue. Looks like they're going. The water deluge system is activated. Less than 10 seconds. Engine ignition. And we have movement. Liftoff of Starship on Flight 9. And for just the 9th time, the full Starship integrated stack has cleared the tower. Yeah, about 40 seconds into flight. All 333 Raptor engines have ignited at this point. Vehicle's about to pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure. Confirmation of max Q. About a minute and a half to hot state or super heavy MECO. Most engines cut off, and then a hot staging seconds afterwards. Looks like good on camera or onboard views. Clear picture, nice view of the Texas coastline. Mexico as well. This is the first flight of a reused super heavy booster with 29 of those 33 Raptor engines flying once again. Still appears to be a good initial burn. Coming up on about 30 seconds before super heavy MECO. Most engines cut off. And we've got staging in real time. Separation. SpaceX feed coming in on a slight delay, so we'll see these events replicated beyond our tracking cameras here in Starbase, thanks to Lat Padre. Coming up on 3 minutes in flight. And you can see the ship upper stage just off the edge of the Super Heavy. Boost back burn still in play. Just about 15 seconds away from the end of the boost back burn in real time. Again, for those who may just be joining in for the first time in this broadcast, the Super Heavy booster will not be attempted to be caught by the tower. Coming up at about T plus 6 minutes and 19 seconds will be the Super Heavy landing burn start. Seeing some good views from the ship upper stage S-35. continuing to climb at about 111 kilometers in altitude. We're a little less than 2 minutes to the start of the super heavy landing burn here. Seeing some of the excess liquid oxygen being dumped. This is intentional on the booster stage. You can still see the hot staging ring. Actually, that's that little dot just beneath the booster in this tracking cam view.
Uh-oh. Bit of a fire in the aft section. That is no
Oh,
bueno.
yeah, you can see a little bit of irregularity.
That could be the nitrogen purge system, though.
Yeah, they haven't mentioned anything about that, so hopefully that's intentional. Coming up on 5.5 minutes into flight.
It is burning blue, I'll note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, the sun angle isn't helping with getting good visibility on that. The glow that you're seeing in the aft section of the super heavy booster, that is not the burn starting just yet. That is just the glow of the heat off of the shielding there. Coming up on the start of the landing burn in real time. There you can see it looked like the start of the, yep, there's the, it looks like they lost the booster during the start of the landing burn, which was not intention. That was not the intention. Unclear if that was actually the landing burn itself. So while they were not intending to recover the booster, they also were not intending to lose it during the landing burn. So that'll be something that SpaceX will be looking at. Coming up now on about 7 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight of the ship upper stage. We'll see if they get through this point. The last two flights, they were unable to get through the conclusion, the intended conclusion of the upper stage engine burn. Now, a nominal ship engine cutoff is expected at about T plus 8 minutes and 56 seconds. So just a little more than a minute from now. Less than a minute remaining in this burn.
More fire appearing on the right side. And the RVAC nozzle is getting pretty hot.
I did just see some lateral motion, it looked like, in the ship. Like it was yawing a bit. It's hard to tell for sure.
Yeah, interesting that they don't have the previously used ship orientation. Oh, there it goes. All right, there
Yeah,
goes
look at that glow.
the Raptors, or the Raptor vacuum engines have shut down. Sea level should be shutting down right about now. Confirmation of ship engine cutoff by SpaceX. And this is already farther than they were able to get with flights 7 and 8. So, really important milestone for the Starship program to get to this point now.
Is that motion normal?
A bit difficult to tell.
It did seem a little bit more than I would have expected. Kind of hard to gauge the orientation here without the Earth view. Now about 10 and a half minutes into the flight, assuming all continues to go as SpaceX intends, we're coming up on the payload deployment demonstration, which would be the first time that Starship would deploy any kind of payload. It's got 8 dummy Starlinks on board. You can see actually the door that is right there in the middle of the ship that is being reflected on by the sun from this angle. So as we continue to watch these upper stage views, Stephen, I'll bring you back in first. Just your initial thoughts on the first time a Block 2 version of the ship upper stage has made it to this point in the flight, and what you're expecting with the next couple milestones here with the payload deployment and the in-space relight demonstration.
Well, certainly they got farther than they did on flight 7 or 8, so we're not going to be worried about any debris falling over Turks and Caicos this time, which is always a good thing. All the discussion about the air traffic disruptions, not an issue with this flight. We'll see what happens next. I'm a little concerned about the motion we're seeing on the ship. It seems to be moving around a lot more than I recall on the previous flights. Looks like that's a beautiful shot there over the Bahamas now, out over the Atlantic Ocean, but not sure what to make of this motion, if it's part of a normal process to maybe, thermally stabilize the vehicle, like a barbecue roll, like we see a lot of rockets do to make sure all sides of the vehicle are roughly at equal temperatures. That may be what we're seeing here, but we'll see in the next few minutes if SpaceX moves forward with their next test, which is the Starlink replica or Starlink mock-up deploy test.
Zach, I'll go to you next. Your thoughts on where we are in the mission, and Stephen's thoughts about the orientation of the vehicle that we've seen so far.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm kind of going back and looking at footage again. I was just looking at re-looking at the shutdown there. Very, very interesting differences from past flights. I mean, overall, it seems like everything is fine. I mean, they do have RCS thrusters, so they theoretically should be able to reorient the ship if there is any like odd things going on with that. I guess if they make it to payload deployment, that will be a big sign that everything is going as expected. But I mean, so far everything obviously looks much better than the last 2 flights, so that is fantastic news. I'm sure they're really happy that they made it past there. I do think that there were still some issues going on there leading up to SECO, and it honestly seemed like it held on by a thread there. So Yeah, very interesting. I'm hoping they give more details about that later.
Yeah, certainly hoping they flesh out some of those details as we're now just about 4 minutes away from the payload deployment demonstration. So we'll be watching for the opening of the door as they get ready for that milestone. And as they commentators are just noting, they've only opened the payload bay door once during Starship flight while it was in space along a suborbital trajectory. So that in of itself will be a notable milestone. And then, of course, the actual deployment. Actually, you can see those simulator Starlinks right there now. A look live inside the payload bay of Starship. A rare glimpse inside the interior of this upper stage while it's in flight. Zach, I know obviously you take a very close look at all the opportunities we get for details like that. Brief though it was, did anything jump out at you just there?
Not quite, not quite. I do need to go back and review a few things. I'm like, mine's all over the place at the moment. And then I get distracted by these views of the payload bay, which are pretty awesome right here, nice up close. And I wonder if this is a camera on one of the actual Starlink simulators, because if so, that is going to be pretty amazing if we actually get to see that from the view of the Starlink when it deploys. This
Yeah,
may actually be the first one, the lowest one on the rack, which means it'll be looking back at the others.
Well, SpaceX certainly loves to make its renders a reality. So, we've seen the animation of a deployment of Starlink satellites, the actual version 3s. So that'd be pretty nifty if that actually were to come to pass with one of these simulator Starlink satellites. Coming up on just a couple minutes before that milestone comes up, said to happen in about T plus 18 minutes and 26 seconds. So we should see the payload bay door opening here in the next probably about a minute or so in preparation for that.
Yeah, and just looking back again, I think that camera was actually on the wall of the payload section, even though it looked like it was on the one of the Starlinks. I don't think it is. So that would be quite the feat, honestly, to pull that off, because you would need some sort of system communication from the dummy Starlinks back to the ship. So I'm not necessarily expecting to see that, although it would be cool.
Yeah, and as captured by Lab Padre through its great 24/7 live cameras on YouTube, we did get to see views of these simulator Starlinks being loaded on, and they seem pretty basic. So while it would be nice to see them have some kind of camera capability to capture it floating in real time, I would also be shocked to see that happen. Did hear comments that they were unable to open the door all the way. They started the opening sequence, but it wasn't able to open all the way, so they're going to close it and it sounds like try again. Now, the next milestone in this mission is the in-space relight demo of one of the Raptors on the ship upper stage. So unclear exactly how long they have to fiddle with this, how much margin they have with this part of the mission before they move on ahead. And actually, we just heard the call that they are unable to deploy those Starlink simulators. They have made the call that they are going to be moving on. Taking a live look right now at Mission Control, not in Starbase, Texas. This is Hawthorne, California. looking back inside the payload bay here as, again, for those who may just be joining us now with the joint live coverage between Lab Padre and Spaceflight Now, Starship was able to successfully launch from Pad A down at Starbase, Texas. The mission got through successful hot staging, and the booster, as it began to orient itself ahead of the start of the landing burn, did have what appeared to be an earlier issue. Unclear exactly if that was as the landing burn was starting or if it was just shortly before the landing burn, but right around that point in the timeline. And so initially the goal was to have the landing burn take place, to shut down those engines, do sort of a staggered experiment where they would have 2 of the 3 center engines lit with 1 out, and then they would use one of the middle ring engines to demonstrate what would happen if one of the center 3 engines were to have an issue unintentionally. But as the case turned out, they were unable to completely go through that experiment. And then moving on, we did see a good shutdown of the ship's engines, both the sea level and vacuum Raptors. Those had a successful staggered shutdown. Did appear that there was a bit more movement than may have been initially anticipated, but it looks like things got sorted out, and so they had entered into a good coast phase with Ship 35 at this point in time. Time now T plus 27 minutes, 6 seconds and counting. At this point, we're just about 10 minutes away from that in-space relight demonstration mission. Stephen, bringing you back into the conversation here as we're awaiting that next milestone. You know, perhaps this is because Elon Musk will be giving a talk coming up in presumably the next hour or so. But just your thoughts, just looking back on the SpaceX broadcast, thought it notable that basically during the other previous 8 missions, there were some notable either announcements or you know, sort of key discussions about some of the milestones that have been made with the Starship program and some of the other things surrounding that, which seem to be quite notably absent from this broadcast. Do you think they're intentionally holding back right now because Musk is going to be making some announcements later on, or is that something we just shouldn't read too much into at this point?
Yeah, I don't know, Will. I wouldn't read a lot into it. You know, if Elon in his talk this evening doesn't go into any of that, then maybe that'll be the time to try to take a lesson from, you know, what SpaceX is not saying. As I recall, on previous broadcasts, they shared milestones like some of the training or some of the reviews they've done for HLS, Human Landing System for Artemis, right?
Sorry to cut you off, Stephen. I know I asked the question and then I'm pivoting right now. But speaking of what they're not saying, just noticing the telemetry icon of the ship upper stage in the lower right-hand corner of the screen here, doing quite a bit more oscillating than I would have expected at this stage in flight, tilting very dramatically in a downward fashion and then back up again. I don't believe we saw that in the previous flights where all was going swimmingly with ship upper stage, right? This seems odd to me.
No, that's a good point, Will. And
Yeah.
now we're seeing a live view from the vehicle over. It's in a night pass now, so we're not seeing a lot of detail.
No, not a lot of detail, but perhaps quite a bit more movement than we should be seeing.
I tend to agree from what we've seen in the video earlier when it was still daylight, when it was still in sunlight, and also what we're seeing on the icon now on the display. If that is accurate, I don't think that is normal.
Yeah, definitely appears to be tumbling just with the lighting in the background. Yeah, that's a suboptimal.
So, according to the timeline, we should be about less than 7 minutes away from the relight demonstration. I can't imagine if it's tumbling as it appears to be that they would be able to do that. Let's listen in.
We're about 30 minutes into today's flight test, and the ship is on its suborbital trajectory. As you can see in some of the views and from some of the telemetry, we are in a little bit of a spin. We did spring a leak in some of the fuel tank systems inside of Starship, which a lot of those are used for your attitude control. And so at this point, we've essentially lost our attitude control with Starship. We are still on a path toward re-entry. We are suborbital, so no matter what, we are going to enter. However, this lowers the chances for it to be a controlled re-entry. So if you think back to Flight 3, when we had something similar happen, just the end symptom of a loss of attitude control, we were in a roll by the time we hit re-entry. So we are going to re-enter. We should hopefully still have views. The Starlink satellites are pretty robust to still maintaining contact. We've got 4 of those terminals on the vehicle, and they're pretty robust to maintaining contact even when we are in a spin, essentially. So we should hopefully continue to keep live views. It's going to still be dark until we get a little bit closer to entry, as we are a little bit, we're coming up on Africa. I believe we do swing just to the south of that continent. And by the time we start heading out over the Indian Ocean, we'll start heading into a sunrise. So, not looking great with a lot of our on-orbit objectives for today, where we were hoping to do the PES deploy and relight an engine, and then really importantly get into that controlled entry to really put the heat shield through the ringer. Nonetheless, Starship marching forward towards that re-entry over the Indian Ocean, so we'll continue to hang with it and give you any updates as things continue to change.